Are you leading your company, or are you just the highest paid handyman in the building? There is a dangerous trap that catches 90% of business owners. You start the day with a strategic plan, but by 10 a.m., you've answered 15 quick questions, put out at least 3 client fires, and fixed a broken process that you thought you solved last month. You are no longer the CEO. You've become the Chief Troubleshooting Officer. And while it feels productive to save the day, every time you personally fix a problem, you are actually damaging your company's ability to scale. Today, we are shifting your operating system. We are moving you from the reactive troubleshooter to the strategic architect. We're going to cover how to remove yourself from the decision loop entirely so the business produces the right outcomes without your constant intervention. Welcome back. Now, the problem with being good at solving problems is that you attract them. It's called the competence trap. Because you hold the historical knowledge and the intuition, your team has learned that the fastest way to solve a problem isn't to think, it's to ask you. Most advice tells you delegate or work on the business, not in it. But that is way too vague. If you delegate tasks, but keep the decision-making authority, you haven't actually left the loop. You've just become a bottleneck. In this video, we are going to apply systems thinking to leadership. We will look at how to extract the logic from your brain, build an institutional brain that leverages modern AI, and finally, architect a machine that runs on code and culture, not on your willpower. Let's define the difference. A troubleshooter sees a fire and brings a bucket of water. An architect sees a fire and asks, why was the building made of flammable material? And where was the sprinkler system? The troubleshooter is addicted to the dopamine hit of being the hero. When you swoop in to save a client relationship or fix a production error, you feel valuable. But here's the hard truth. If you have to save the day was not designed properly. Now, the core issue here isn't the work, it's the decision loop. In a reactive business, the employee identifies the problem, but the analysis and decision phases live inside of your head, making you the processor. This limits the company's speed to your personal bandwidth. If you're in a meeting, the company pauses. If you're on vacation, the company holds its breath. To become the architect, you must stop viewing problems as things to fix and start viewing them as system failures. Every time a question reaches your desk, it is evidence of a missing system, a broken protocol, or a lack of training. The goal is not to answer the question. The goal is to build a system so the question never needs to be asked again. This leads us to system thinking. In engineering, we often talk about a black box. You put an input in and get a reliable output out. You don't need to know what happens inside the box every single time as long as the output is consistent. As an architect, your job is to build these black boxes for every function of your business. Currently, you are the black box. We need to externalize that. This is different from just writing SOPs. An SOP, or standard operating procedure, is often just a list of steps. Systems architecture is about designing the logic flow. It requires 3 shifts in your thinking. Number 1, pattern recognition. Stop treating every issue as unique. 90% of business problems are actually recurring patterns disguised as new events. 2, constraint management. Instead of micromanaging the action, you architect the constraints. You define the boundaries, budget, brand, voice, timeline, and let the team play within them. 3, feedback loops. A system must be able to correct itself. If an employee makes a mistake, the system should catch it, not you. When you think like an architect, you realize that personnel problems are usually process problems. If a good person keeps failing, then it's the architecture that's bad, not them. You're trying to drive a Ferrari off-road. So, how do we practically remove you from the loop? We build an institutional brain. In the past, this meant binders full of paper that literally no one read. Today, we have a massive advantage. Artificial intelligence and searchable knowledge bases. You need to extract your decision-making criteria. This is the hardest part for intuitive leaders because you just know the answer, but you don't just know. You are processing data based on years of experience. You need to decode that. Here's the exercise, the why interrogation. Next time you make a decision, ask yourself, what data did I look at? What risk was I avoiding? What was the trade-off? Document this. This becomes the source code for your company. In the AI era, you can upload these decision logs, your past emails, and your strategic documents into a private LLM or large language model. or a smart internal wiki. Now, when a team member has a question, they query the institutional brain first. They don't ask, "Hey boss, what should I do?" They ask the system, "Based on our protocols for Tier 1 clients, how should we handle this delay?" The system gives them the answer you would have given them based on your logic, but without your involvement. This is how you scale judgment. This is how you clone your competence. But let's get real. You can't flip a switch and become the architect overnight. If you walk away today, the building is probably going to collapse. So you need a transition plan. Here's the 4-step process to remove yourself from the loop. Step 1, the audit. Just for 1 week, log every single interaction, every text, every knock at the door, categorize them. Which ones are permission requests? Which ones are information requests? Step 2, the logic extraction. Pick the top 3 recurring interruptions. Now, don't fix the problem this time, document the logic. Create a decision tree. If X happens, do Y. If Z happens, do A. Step 3, the beta test. Give that decision tree to your team. Tell them, just for the next week, use this logic, but only come to me if the chart doesn't have the answer. Step 4, the review. Review the decisions they made. If they got it wrong, don't blame them. Blame the document. Update the architecture. Then repeat this process until you are only dealing with novel, high-stakes, strategic decisions, the ones that actually require a CEO. The shift from chief troubleshooter to architect is painful. It requires you to let go of the ego that comes from being the fixer. It requires you to trust the machine you built more than your own hands. But the reward is freedom. Not just the freedom to take a vacation, but the freedom to think, to look 3 years into the future because you aren't drowning in today. Your business shouldn't be a reflection of your effort. It should be a reflection of your design. If you want to dive deeper into the specific tools I use to document these systems, check out the link in the description or watch this video right here on building a second brain for business. I'm Robert Dempsey, helping you architect a business that runs without you. See you in the next one.